Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Welcome again to the live version of Never Been Promoted podcast YouTube channel. Hi, I'm your host, Thomas Helfrich. I'm on a mission to help you get better at entrepreneurship, help you kind of cut the tide, all that stuff that's holding you back, all those fears, all those excuses, maybe even some people that are out there that are kind of dragging on your clothes there and not letting you become who you want to become. We're doing this through just interviewing other entrepreneurs, from learning from others' journeys. And today we're going to be joined by Chris Ortega. Chris is the founder and CEO of Fresh FP&A. I think I said it right. He'll correct me, I'm sure, if I did it wrong. But listen, if this is your first time ever listening to the channel or seeing, hearing the podcast or watching, thank you for coming. I hope it's the first of many. I do invite you to come back and learn and participate by asking questions in the live chat. If you've been here before, thanks for showing up. Only ever ask is, if you love the podcast, give it a 5-star on Apple, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcast players is. And also, if you haven't done it yet, go to youtube.com/neverbeenpromoted and give us a subscribe. But enough shameless promotion. Let's bring in Chris. Chris, how are you doing?
Thomas, what's up, man? Hey, dude, I just want to say I love your tie right now, bro. I like if I was like cutting off, it's like I want to be professional at the top, but at the bottom, it's all party, dude.
It's all party. I do have shorts on. That's how I rock this. They are in brand color as well. But it's the metaphor, right? We have all these things that hold us back, that help us, keep us from being great at whatever it is we want to become. And the tie was in brand color, and I cut it off. I was like, you know what? Let's get rid of these things. And so now it's a brand. I have to go with it. So I appreciate that. You're tieless. I probably should have gone that route because I hate wearing these things, and there's some irony with that I still have one on effectively. But where are you joining from today?
Yeah, I'm actually McCoursville, Indiana. So I'm a Hoosier through and through. I grew up here in Indiana, did all my schooling here, all my family's here. I think if you cut me right now, I would bleed crimson and cream, which are the Indiana University colors. So I'm a Hoosier through and through, man.
Me too. I went to Bloomington as well. I went to the Kelly School of Business. I probably went a moon or two before you, but I was definitely there. They didn't. When I was there, they stopped doing riots for Little 500. Just if you guys don't know, it's a giant bike race.
Yeah. So when I got to IU, it was the year after. So this is going to age myself. This is the year after we went to the NCAA finals where we beat Duke. And Thomas, I remember going to IU and I was like, this is about to be like the best college experience. We got a great basketball team. Like IU basketball's here. I'm starting my freshman year. And ever since that moment, we have sucked in basketball. And it's like so depressing last year to see Purdue in the national championship game. And it's like, we didn't even make the tournament. It's like, man, I'm waiting for IU basketball to get back on the map, man.
Bobby Knight is rolling in his grave and going. He's throwing chairs, people, at the administration that's still there that he had challenges with. All right. So, hey, listen, before we get going here, let's start off with the crazy icebreaker. I love to ask this question. What is the most worthless talent you have?
Oh man, that's a good one. The most worthless talent I have is, I would probably say is, I love drinking, like the worthless talent is like, I love drinking like really salty food. And I don't know if that's a talent or not, but like you give me like, some pepperoncinis or some olives or some calamari olives, and you're just like, hey, we got all this juice left over from all that. I think my worthless talent, man, is I can down that and not get sick and just absolutely like love it. And I'm an avid workout person. I work out 5 to 6 times a week, and I'm like always craving that. So like I always keep in my refrigerator or just readily available just a nice little Starbucks size cup of just salty brine olive juice, peppercini juice, or something like that. So I'll probably say that's probably one of my worthless talent.
I don't think that's so. It's weird. My wife can do that. She can drink like that, and my kids can drink pickle juice, and I hate all that stuff just in general. But I'm like this, and apparently it's very healthy. I don't deny it's healthy things. I'm just saying, if people would like to know, that I think that's absolutely disgusting. So that is, I don't know if it's a worthless talent, but it's an interesting one. But let me ask you this though: are you also somebody who can drink like any form of alcohol, even though you may not like it? You can get it down.
No, I'm definitely not that, man. I think just sharing back to IU, dude, it's like I cannot do like vodka. I'm more of a tequila drinker. I'm more of a blanco tequila. You give me a nice a soda water, lime, and a nice tequila, and like that's my go-to drink. But anything else outside of that, I'm not really an avid drinker. I don't drink a lot of beer, don't drink a wine. Every now and again, I'll have that occasional. I call it the CEO drink, which is the soda water, lime, and tequila. I call it the CEO, and sometimes I have that. But yeah, I'm not like when it comes to like certain kind of like liquids and like beers and all that stuff. I don't really get into all that.
So your company is a Fresh FP&A. Do you want to tell everyone what FP&A stands for? Did you go to Kelly School of Business for that?
I did. I
Yeah.
did. I got my honors degree from the Kelly School of Business and Accounting and Finance. So, yeah, tell you a little bit about Fresh FP&A. So, I lead a global fractional CFO and advisory service company. After spending 20 plus years in accounting, finance, FP&A, and financial leadership, primarily in building finance organizations, I've realized two things after having that experience. I took a software company through acquisition to SAP, which was one of the largest acquisitions that I was a part of. After doing that, I realized two things. I said the first thing I realized is I know what it takes to transform and scale finance organizations. I've been there, done that. I know the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And the second thing is I felt like there needed to be a fresh perspective brought to finance. So that's why under a little under 3 years ago, I started Fresh FP&A, and we provide fractional CFO and advisory services to small and medium sized businesses. We help them bring financial clarity, and we help them lead with financial confidence. And to answer your question, our version of FP&A is not traditionally the financial planning and analysis. Technology can do the financial planning and analysis way more faster. Our version and our fresh perspective on FP&A is we're going to be your financial partners and advisors. So that's our version of FP&A, is the financial partnership and advising, and that's what we do. And that's a little bit about Fresh FP&A.
That's great. And
That's
you're
great.
you're taking a very established market, and because you can apply uh, cost savings and effectiveness and stuff that some of the larger organizations will struggle to do to hit the same numbers. And as a small business owner myself, I'm starting to understand the power of having someone who understands finance. You don't need it when you're like maybe making less than 250K a year. In my opinion, this money spent, unless you're like clearly like on some kind of hyper growth path, it's probably better served otherwise. But when you started getting enough where the money's starting to come in a little bit and you got a little profitability and you're not sure, well, how much to reserve, how much to do, what tax implications, think this is where you guys come in and really, if I'm understanding it right, really kind of can make an impact. And whatever your fees are, typically what I've heard is, what you do is in a growth specific company or a company that's got good revenue, it's an investment that pays itself back because of exitability, like just better profitability, understanding, explanation, So I don't want to steal your thunder, but I want to be clear that a lot of people hear this and go, I don't need it. And that's actually not the case. So
Yes.
take a few moments. I said a lot there, but talk about that a bit, because it's something that's come to light to me as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, working with SMB business owners, right? A lot of them struggle with let's just all be honest, right? When you're a CEO, business owner, or founder at an SMB, small to medium sized business, right? Finance is not really your bread and butter, right? You may be a product person, you may be a salesperson, you may be an operations person, and this is where I think a fractional CFO, and particularly Fresh FP&A, can really help grow and scale your business, right? Like, you want to be focused on the growth of the business. You want to be focused on the operations. You want to be focused maybe in working with investors. But bringing on a subject matter expert, people that have lived, breathed, done that, like I said before, know the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, and know how to build a solid finance foundation. That is so important when you're early on in the business, because as you continue to scale, maybe you're $1 million business, and as you get to $10 million, as you get to 25, as you get to 30, 40, as you continue to grow in your organization, I always look at the foundation is that solid finance foundation. And think of it as a house. When you have to build that house and you have to go back and correct that foundation because you didn't bring in the right people, or you don't have the most efficient processes, or you don't have the partnership, which we focus on as the foundation pillars of a finance organization. And then you're not bringing in the right technology. You're not focused on profit and performance optimization, right? It's a lot more time, energy, and effort and resources to go back and build that foundation on that finance house when you're scaling. So, we work with all different kind of businesses, and you may be thinking, well, I'm too early, right? I'm only $1 million business. That's actually the best time to bring on that subject matter expertise. And also, Thomas, you talked about the other side of it. It's a fractional CFO, right? So if you were to go in the market right now and you wanted to hire a full-time CFO, right? When you load in the salary, the bonuses, the insurance, the recruiting costs, the ramp time, you're making a significant investment in that resource. And with a fractional CFO, you get that same skills, passion, talents, and experience at a fraction of the cost of bringing on that full-time resource. So, as I talk with CEOs and business owners and founders, we have what I call the Fresh FP&A guarantee, is to say if we don't deliver on our services and value that we created, I'm confident in my team, I'm confident in the value, I'm confident in the impact that we're going to have in scaling your business, I'll give you your money back. So for me, I think like that's really important for these owners to think about, because we're in a constant environment of uncertainty and challenge, right? Bringing on subject matter people that have that skills, passions, talents, and expertise to help you scale, whether that's in finance or whether that's in marketing or whether that's in sales or whether that's in HR or whether it's in operation. This fractional model gives you that ability to help scale and lead with confidence. So that would be
Well,
my insight. And like I said, we work with SMB owners across the globe, and that is commonly an objection that we come across, that there's a lot of value in bringing on those resources earlier on.
yeah. Well, no,
Yeah.
and what's the what's your biggest objection typically when your people are buying this? Like, is it a cost? Is it understanding? And how do you kind of overcome it? Because I've never bought the stuff, the services, and I know lots of people who are great for it. So, what do you? How do you overcome that? Or what is the question, I guess, first, and how do you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge and objection that you get is like, hey, we already have like an accounting person. Like, why do I need a fractional CFO when I already have like a bookkeeper? And I'm saying, okay, like there's a huge experience, knowledge, and gap, right? And a lot of times, CEOs, business owners, and founders, maybe they have their accounting services or tactical operations outsourced to a public accounting firm or a private accounting firm, or they may have an in-house bookkeeper, and they're like, I don't really need a fractional CFO. And I'm like, that bookkeeper, that accountant, they're only going to give you the history of your business, right? They answer two questions: what do we say we're going to do, and what do we do? That's typically what the bookkeeper is giving you. They're giving you your financial statements. They're saying, hey, looking at May, this is what we did in revenue. Where you can bring on a fractional CFO that helps you think about, they answer the number one question to your business as you're looking forward. What we say we're going to do, what do we do? What are we going to do about it? Right? And when you're thinking about investment, when you're looking at fundraising, when you're looking at access to capital, when you're thinking about acquiring a business, when you're thinking about entering a new market, these are all strategic level things that a growing business is going to look at. And a lot of times you see that horsepower with that current accounting bookkeeper or that accounting resource that you have, and that's not their area of expertise, right? And that's where a fractional CFO that has been there, done that. And I look back over in my team, 20 plus years in building finance organizations. I've done this majority of my life in building finance teams to scale, right? Before starting Fresh FP&A professionally, I was always kind of the first finance hire that would come into an organization. I would come in and it's like, hey, we're moving away from our outsource model and we want to bring in somebody to help build our foundation and build our finance team from scratch, right? So I've been through those recipes. I've been through those acquisitions of building companies and sending them off to acquisition. So that's where you have those dominoes and ability to be able to scale. And that's the most common objection that we come across at Fresh FP&A, is saying, I already got an accounting resource. There's an entirely different skill set, mindset, value, and impact that an accounting resource can have and a CFO can have in growing your business.
Yeah, and you gotta you gotta be ready for it.
Yeah,
And you're right, because you counting, it's a pretty commoditized thing at this point. Like just organizing your
definitely.
books, it's a different to look at patterns, and not projections, but predictions is probably a better word, and then do something with it. how much technology is embedded in your types of services? And what I'm specifically saying is, are you leveraging maybe AI, or is it just more just analytical data? So to talk about like where your technology plays in this kind of world.
Yeah, so from a tech stack perspective, a lot of our clients are on all different kind of platforms, right? Typically, they're going to have an ERP platform, enterprise resource planning tool, which is basically in easy explaining their accounting software, right? Most of our clients are going to be in some sort of QuickBooks, NetSuite, Intact, Sage. We do have like a couple clients that are using FreshBooks, but they're going to have their central GL, their accounting software, right? Some of our clients actually have like sophisticated FP&A technologies, right? That's doing the budgeting, the planning, the forecasting, the cash flow optimization. Most of them have Excel models that they're working on, right? So one unique thing about us at Fresh FP&A is we keep technology agnostic. I've used, my team have used, my fractional CFOs that are part of my organizations. We've used all different kinds of technologies, all the way down from like point solutions, like QuickBooks Online and Sage and Intact, all the way to large ERP systems like SAP, Oracle Fusion, and NetSuite, and those bigger solutions. And the same thing goes on the FP&A side, all the way down from point solutions all the way down to CPM technologies as well too. So that is one of the pillars that we focus on, is the platform pillar. That's part of our logo. That's a scaling pillar. But from a technology perspective and working with our client, we meet them where they are, but also provide them recommendations around not only finance technologies, but other business technologies that help them make better data-driven decisions. And that can be around budgeting and planning. That could be around RPA. That could be around, CRMs that they're evaluating. But technology for specifically finance teams, that's how we scale. And specifically with our clients, that's how we help advise them on what's the right technology for them, what is able to solve their pains and frustrations now. But as they continue to scale, they don't outgrow that technology. So that's definitely one of our main pillars that we focus on with our clients.
Yeah, one of the comments from Lawrence Sorrell from LinkedIn, thanks for jumping in, Lauren, is around the
My
value
guy,
foundation.
Lauren.
So I think that's a really good piece. Like even an hour or two a week can be such a game changer. So
Yes.
I didn't even consider that, like what fractional means to me. That could be like, isn't it like 10 hours? But here's a, somebody saying, no, listen, like I've had impact basically from an hour or two a week. So maybe describe like what someone can actually do with that little bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like one of the most important things that we focus on, we don't follow the traditional consulting of like, hey, this is going to be your hourly rate and this is the time we're going to charge for it. We focus on value, right? And this is probably coming back from my, 2 decades of experience in leading high performance finance teams, is I was always value focused. And with our clients, we focus on the value that we're going to give you every single month. So let's focus on a technology. Most people like maybe they have like Microsoft Office, right? You're paying your enterprise license $20 a month for a user, right? You're paying that consistently every month because Microsoft continues to deliver every month the same value that you need. So we take the similar approach at Fresh FP&A. We focus on the value. Like every month, this is the conversations, this is the value we're going to provide, this is the insights that we're going to do, this is how we're going to be involved in your business, this is the cadence we're going to have. So I like to position the value. We're focused on value, not about, hey, this report or this meeting, I'm going to sit in for an hour and we're going to charge you X amount of dollars, right? Like that's the traditional way of thinking about the finance team, and bringing on a finance leader. Again, bringing the fresh perspective into that, we focus on value. And for us, when we get into the time and material conversation, right? Like that's no, let's not look at nickel and diamond, right? And I'll give you a great example. So I made the mistake when I started Fresh at P&A. This goes back to when I started my career in public accounting, right? I started in a billable, very intensive utilization kind of environment. And initially starting Fresh FP&A, that's what we did. And I'll never forget, Thomas, I had a client, and this hurts my heart telling this story, but it changed everything for us at Fresh FP&A. I had a client that said, Chris, they didn't let us know something going on in their business, and we didn't find out till like later on, and we couldn't really make an impact. There's nothing we can do. And Thomas, I remember that client having that conversation with me, and they said, Chris, yeah, we didn't want to let you know because we knew that would have been like, maybe a 1 to 2 hour meeting. and we knew what that would have cost us. And I was
Wow.
like, immediately at that point, I was like, I never want a client that wants to share things with us and wants to talk with us and wants to communicate with us because the meter's running. So immediately I was like, nope, we're getting out of this. I don't ever want a client being in that position and getting that feedback. So we made that shift early on in the business to focus on value. Every month, the same way you pay for technology, the same way, you look at resources that providing value to your business, we want to be looked at in that same lens. So that's when we made that shift over. And that's how you can really leverage like the fractional side of it in leveraging, but focus on value. And that's a tip to all those fractional CFOs, all those finance leaders that are thinking about doing this. Learn from me. Don't make the mistake of evaluating your impact and value based on the time and dollar amount that you get. You think about it, right? If you limit it that way, you're always capping yourself, right? So take that story, take that piece of advice, and don't make that same mistake I did.
Well, I mean, that's a great point. And from an entrepreneurial lesson, sometimes you got to pivot from what you know to what's going to
Definitely.
become your brand. And there'll be places where you should charge time and material because some people will take certainly advantage of that for free
Absolutely.
advice. But from the value standpoint, like, hey, I'm here to do this value, and if that requires this or that, then we need to, and that's smart business. And just from being kind of like situationally aware to do that in your own organization. Have the Taylor's kids ever been naked where you've never taken your own teachings and apply them to your own business? Do you ever find yourself sometimes going, man, I really need to get a CFO in here?
And no, not necessarily for like my business, right? I honestly, if I'm being fully transparent, I think like I go back and most of my industry experience have been in like software, technology, retail, and like pharma companies. And I run my business like a software company, man. Like we provide a professional service, but when you look at the unit economics of my business, I run it like a software business. So and that's an expertise that not only I have, but my team has as well too. So like I know the rhythm of SaaS, software as a service. Like I know that our business, our financials look that way. So I don't necessarily need, I would say like a CFO for me. But getting to your question, there are plenty of times where it's like I was talking to a good mentee of mine, and we were struggling with the same thing because I was giving him advice and I was like, man, the same advice I'm giving you, I need to be doing that. And it was around scale, right? He came to me, we were having a conversation. Every Thursday I connect with him and he's developing his fractional CFO business. And I've kind of taken him under my wing to help him. And he's a good friend of mine. And as I'm thinking about sharing this insight and advice to him around scale, right? Like, hey man, you need to be thinking about, and one thing you need to be focused on is do like maybe 1 week out of a month really dial down your time and where you're spending your time on. And I'm coming up with these solutions, Thomas, and I'm like, I should be doing that too. Like, that's a
Yeah.
really great insight. Like, I should be doing that. So, in the entrepreneurship journey, I think one of the most important things that I figured out is like, hey, Chris, if you're serving the soup, you also need to be eating the soup as well too. And it's Thomas, sometimes it's so hard to do that because when you're giving advice, I'm able to think differently about how I want to share value and I'm drawing upon experience and but when you're thinking about that internally, sometimes I'm wearing the CEO hat, and sometimes I'm wearing the CFO hat, and sometimes I'm working with my marketing team, sometimes I'm working with IT, and being able to take a step back and say, all right, what are some great insights or feedback that I'm sharing that I know could be applicable for me? And I think one great way for all those people looking at this, listen, get accountability partners. That's been like a
Yeah.
game changer for me. Like, I have a team of about 4 people that hold me accountable. And these are people that are not in finance. One of them is running a marketing company, another one's a fractional CMO, and they're my accountability partners. And in leading a business, and sometimes you feel like you're on an island, right? Thomas, you probably feel this way sometimes. You're like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just out here doing my thing, and get you an accountability group where you can share best practices and take it even a step further. Get an accountability group that is outside of your core business. You'll learn so much.
Absolutely.
So for me, in answering that question for you, man, I think like drink your own. Like if you're giving the sauce, make sure you're taking the sauce as well too.
No doubt. And like the end of the summer, I'm launching a community called Cut the Tie. And it's exactly that. It's a group of entrepreneurs. It'll be the podcast guests that have come on that have this idea of I want to get help and give help. And
Yeah.
they'll be from all over the world and different. And the idea is part of it's accountability, but also part of it is just, can I ask a question to somebody? And you get like, there's a no vested response back, right? Like they don't have any financial interest is there to tell you what they think, and I think that is very much so important. A question from LinkedIn was, do you think Microsoft's going to launch any AI based FP&A tools? And my question to that is if so, or when it happens, where does your world? How does technology and these big players that release things impact what you're doing, if at all? I mean, because you're a services side, so it's a good question. Thanks. Whoever the LinkedIn user is, state
Yeah,
anonymous.
LinkedIn. Shout out to LinkedIn user, right? I love that question. And I was at a conference. I was at a CFO conference last year. Shout out to the CFO Leadership Council, Jack, all my guys out there, and we were talking about this exact topic. Here's my insight around that. When you look at what is the number one FP&A tool of all time, it's undefeated, and it's always going to be undefeated. Microsoft Excel is like the number one FP&A
The world
tool
runs
of
on
all
Excel,
time.
right?
Yeah, so it's like, and when you look at the landscape of FP&A tools, right? Like Microsoft has D365, which, as I talked about earlier, is their ERP platform. So that's where all the accounting is taking place. Microsoft also has a Gartner leading business intelligence tool called Power BI, right? And now they have Copilot inside of it. Here's what we're going to get to. And Thomas and LinkedIn user, remember at June 18th, 2024 at 12:33 Eastern Standard Time, I said this. Microsoft build an FP&A solution. They're going to acquire an FP&A solution, and this is what the tool set that people are going to have at their disposal. They're going to have D365. They're going to have Power BI built on top, business intelligence on top of accounting software. You're going to have an FP&A solution on top of the accounting software. You're going to have Copilot integrated in all that data. Thomas and LinkedIn user, we're going to get to a point where you're going to open up your phone. I'm going to grab my phone, and you're going to open up Power BI, right? And you're going to say, Power BI, what is my next 6 months forecast and how does that compare to last year? Microsoft has Cortana. They have like the voice recognition. We're going to get to that point where business people are going to be enabled. Salesperson is going to sit across and say, "Hey, what's my bookings projection that finance has for me for July through December?" And give it to me in a bar graph that I can easily read. Flip open my screen and see it. That right there, for some people, is like, I look at it as like, that's awesome. I love that. I love to empower the business where they don't have to come send me that email or send me that Microsoft Teams request and say, "Hey, CFO, Chris, you're our fractional CFO. What's our bookings projections for July through December?" Right? I don't want them to do that. I want to be able to create a system where they can go access and consume actionable data and insights that they need, which is the role of what technology needs to do, right? It's a simple framework. Let me break it down for you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Well,
called,
and
I
I
call it
think part of that, just to say it, is that we're describing as where AI is going to accelerate human, and also come to like, well, an AI is never going to be the CFO because there's the day-to-day nuance and things that they're going to be there to guide that CFO based on a lot of data that they could not have possibly consumed to say, hey, this is what we should do. And I think it's also just to get into it a little bit. I think you shift from, there's a quarterly, yearly vision, but the truth is you can almost micro with right AI and data at a daily level of, hey, listen, I think we're here, we're there. I didn't interrupt you, but I think I'm paying importance how much AI is going to play in lots of business, but in particular when you have data like math that's somewhat golden standard rule data that's known.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to reiterate, just to give a simple, easy framework on how this AI and part of Microsoft or just AI overall can be a value add to finance, CFOs, professionals, right? It's a framework that I call the decision cycle. Very easy to understand. Processes drive data, Data is then turned to information. Information is shared through knowledge to ultimately make a business decision. Process, data, information, knowledge, decision, right? The value add and where finance, accounting, FP&A, and CFO professionals will never be replaced is knowledge to decision making. That is the value add we need to be. But if you look at right now, right, there's probably people looking at this and saying, Chris, I'm in the process now of gathering data. I got to refresh this data and do all these VLOOKUPs and all this massaging of this data to actually get it to information that then I can share to my sales partner so we can make a decision. Here's the
And
value added that decision cycle. Technology, whether it's Microsoft's AI, whether it's Gemini with Google, whether it's Copilot, whether it's ChatGPT, irregardless, process data information, let technology do that. You put the CFO, you put the finance professional at the most value added part of that decision cycle, knowledge. How can you take this data and information, communicate it, bring clarity, and bring connection to a person to make a business decision, right? You talk about 80-20 of balance, right? 80% of finance professionals are like, I'm churning through this data, this process data information. Imagine the time, energy, effort, resource. Imagine your life when you're focused on, I got all this edit to me, and all I got to do is sit across from my CEO, business owner, or founder, and we got to share this knowledge to make a business decision. Game changer. That's
game
where
changer.
that's where it's gonna that's where we're gonna
And
level up.
I actually think the fractional CFO model, except for bigger companies, because they're going to need someone full time. I think you
Definitely.
can go longer with a fractional anything really that knows how to use the technology correctly to help your business. So the model you're in, as long as it has a technology knowledge component, whatever the technology is, that fractional CFO can be much more effective in a shorter time. And that
That's
means you
true.
get the cost savings not only of AI, because they don't have to go off and do the uh, analysis, right? Excel hell. Small tangent for all your IU people. I'll throw it out there. Who remembers X100? That's
Yeah, I remember that,
I
dude.
have a
Yeah,
story.
we had to learn macros and stuff, and we were
Yeah,
doing that.
I will give you. I will give you the. So when I was in school, this was right before the .com blowout. So I graduated in '99. So when I took this, is probably 96, 97, and maybe actually 95, 94, 96. So anyway, a while ago, I was in. It was Hyper, the sports marketing piece. I was on that side of it, and I took this one business class. I'm just going to go down this how much Excel matters. It was actually the reason I went to go into business school, because I took this class. Everyone's like, everyone fails it. Everyone fails X100. And I'm like, oh God. And so I take it and I get the packet and I'm working, and it's Excel 101 is basically what it is. But no one really knew Excel then. I went home, did the packet over the weekend. I came in the class and they're like, I go, hey, here's my homework. What's this week? And the teacher goes, that's the entire semester. And I go, oh. And they're like, will you help us teach a class? So, and that's, I was like, just help out. You get an A, you did it right. It was so easy. I was like, oh, this is like so intuitive. And so the teacher was like, hey, you really should go, like, look at software and development and stuff. And so Excel hell began very, very early for me, because then you got really good at it. And now I'm like, I want nothing to do with it. I'm like, don't mask it as a Google sheet either and say it's cool. So what you're doing, you're right, is always been based in Excel. And if you can remove the need for that skill set, but here's the thing I wanted to tie that to. Sorry, just a little random story of like if you went to IU, and you went to the business school and you went through the I-Core.
K201 too. Like that was another course that like
Oh my God.
crushed
Any,
everybody.
any of the I-Core is what you got to do for business school in Indiana. And
Yeah.
it's hard, except operations. Oh my God. Only CI I got in college. Anyway, the point being is, with any Excels you have now, you can use technology. Like I think probably Gemini might be better than this than ChatGPT, to get insight into your data really fast. I mean, like, don't be scared of it. Just go drag it in there and be like, what do you see here? And so maybe you could talk about that, like how quickly you can adopt the technology. And that's probably another area you play with existing, maybe accounting professionals, is to help them. So I wanted to dive into that because I think that's super important for getting started to understanding the value of where a CFO can go. Can you talk a few moments on how you just make the step?
Yeah. So I actually had a very opportunity. So I'm on the planning committee for the AICPA Engage conference. I was just recently out there in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and we talked 4.5 hours, and we trained about 150 accounting, finance, CFOs in finance professionals, and we walked them through 4.5 hours of like beginner level all the way through, where these people are literally in a room and I'm spitting out information and they're writing prompts, right? And it highlights something that I think is really important for every finance professional. If there's one thing you take away from this conversation, if you're at this point of the conversation right now, tune in, stay locked in. If you're finance, CFO, FP&A professional, and you're trying to level up your skill set, like I'm about to give you the blueprint. Technology is how we scale, right? The best way, and I'm going to give you information to learn to get in leveraging some of these generative AI tools, whether it's Perplexity, whether it's Gemini, whether it's Copilot, whether it's ChatGPT, irregardless of what it is, start now, right? If you want an easy and clear takeaway prompt, go into ChatGPT and type this prompt. You are tasked with understanding ChatGPT as a finance professional. Create for me a 30-day training plan where I can learn more about leveraging your services as a finance professional. Give me 15 minutes a day, make it a schedule with 3 learning objectives, and export this information into an easy, clear, concise to understand Excel document, right? Like that prompt may sound very long, right? But I'll express to you how important that is, right? That prompt is going to give you, it's going to give you the information to say, hey, spend 15 minutes a day and do this consistently. You're going to get better in leveraging these tools, right? Which gets to a whole shift in mindset that I want to talk about for people. When I was growing up in finance, and I'm still growing up in finance. I still have a lot to learn, right? But I remember growing up in finance and building teams. And I remember when business partners used to communicate to me, right? I used to think about what they're saying in building a financial model. So let me give you an example. If I'm sitting across from a salesperson and they're like, man, Chris, I would love to look at our bookings forecast where our win rate is not 25%, but maybe 30 and 35%, and see what and if we change the value of our deals, like the deal size from like 8,000 to 10, how much cash that we would bring in if we had 50% of our contracts that were semi-annual before, right? I remember sitting across from the business partners as they're communicating to me, right? They're communicating. I'm already translating how to build this financial model to give them so we can get to that information, right? That was a core skill set. And maybe a lot of people looking at this is like, yeah, Chris, I do that every day. Here's the new mindset that you need to have, right? Being able to take that same information where business now I work with CEOs, business owners, and founders, and I work with their HR groups, their sales groups, their all different areas of the organization because we're very collaborative. Now, when business partners talk to me, I no longer think about how to build a financial model. I'm thinking about how do I build the best prompt to get me the information that I need, right? So my mindset has shifted to not financial modeling. How do I build prompt modeling in my head? So walking through another example, right? We had a client that was dealing with the cash flow issues, and we were diving into understand like their collections policy and how they work through on driving in more cash and what their collection policy was. I'm with the CEO, their salesperson, me, and somebody from my pod that was on the call, and we're working through this stuff. And they're like, "Yeah, Chris, like we're gonna have to get with accounting, we're gonna have to get sales involved." And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, "Hey, you are a $50 million retail client. You're having a cash burn issue. Make me a clear and concise, easy to understand collection policy for non-finance people to understand, and summarize it in a 2-page memo and give me 5 PowerPoint slides." Like as they're talking to me in this, literally in the meeting, I'm thinking through the prompt, right? And this is a 30-minute meeting. We spent 10 minutes doing that. The last 20 minutes of this meeting, we spent customizing the information that was uniquely to their business, right? And at the end, we gave them to say, hey, here's the collection policy that you could go with, right? Thomas, the CEO and the salesperson after this meeting, they were just like,
Yep.
they were quiet. They were like, dude,
I'll
what
tell
just
you know.
happened?
So I'll take one even further with you on this. So just some people can do this. So you could add in live transcripting in Otter, and you can take that transcripting and immediately dump out the prompts behind it. And if you're in anything, but we'll just use the example of finance. What you're describing is as you're hearing that, you're typing in the background of what the prompts are, save them and be like, just take any of the pieces in there and like, what are the concerns? You can do a lot of this stuff in real time. Uh, but I will tell you though, is I add this step extra of, it's, you want to wow people, but no one's
Yeah.
wowed more than taking a look at it and said, in doing it in a way that's, then there's another thoughtful level that you've added your value over it. And the reason I say that is because people who don't understand AI may look at that and may go, hey, why do we need you?
Yeah.
And so make sure you add your layer of value on top and refine and do the things you need to do, because you don't want to outsource your own job. I've been excellent at it my whole career. I've been really good at not getting promoted. That's why I have a podcast named that. And I'm very good at being asked to leave. And that's a good way to get your value deteriorated if they think they can bring an even cheaper resource in to run the prompts. And it's not the way to think, but it's how people do think.
Yeah, and
Michael, by the way,
I just want to
yeah.
add to that, Thomas. I think it's like that. I would disagree with you on that. Here's why I respectfully disagree. Right? I want to talk that's low value stuff. I want to talk myself out of that. Like I don't want my team doing that work. Right? Like it gets back to what I mentioned earlier. Technology should be doing that. The value that we provided to them was we knew their business. Right? We knew the business and said, okay, easy way to understand it is a football analogy. There's 100 yards in a football field, right? We got them to the 80-yard line, and we spent that last 20-yard lines because we know the business. We know their frustrations. We know the bottlenecks that they have. We have all this business acumen, and that's where we shined on the value. And that's why they left the conversation. They were like, Chris, this would have taken us hours to do, multiple conversations, everything that we would have had to do, the time, energy, and effort and resources that we would have had to dedicate to get this piece of delivered that we got done in 20 minutes, right? So like I challenge to say, like, yeah, like the value was there, right? The value was the business acumen and knowing that and then experiencing that, how we can translate that to them. That's the value add, right? But
I
again,
get that. I see that. And when I guess my point is you have to add in, you said what I was trying to get to, I think better is that you have to have knowledge of the business.
for
And
sure.
if you can write the prompts well enough ahead of time, but even having more insight and I love that fact, if you're doing fractional, hey guys, if you want to use that prompt yourself, you bring me in to help interpret what the thing you saw is. And that way, if that even helps you further scale or make a decision when, maybe, I've hit my hours for the week or whatever it is, right? Or grab me to help uninterpret. And I think that's when you're using a fractionally more powerful, that you're leaving them in a better spot with it. Just conscious of time. Oh my God. Who should get a hold of you, by the way? And we have more to go. I'm going to ask a few more questions, so don't hang up yet, guys. Who should get a hold of you? How do they do that?
Yeah, if you want to connect with me, learn about how we can help you lead with financial clarity and confidence, check out our website, www.freshfpna.com. It's in the lower left. If you want to connect with me, follow me on LinkedIn. Just type in Fresh CFO. That'll be on LinkedIn. If you want to follow more about everything we got going on, follow us at Fresh FPA on all of our socials. Happy to connect. If you're a small business owner, CEO, or founder, and you're looking for that strategic finance partner to help you lead with financial clarity and confidence, we're happy to help you at Fresh FP&A. My team is ready. We're taking on new clients, and we're ready to help you grow and scale your business. So those are all the resources to get in contact with me. I'm all over LinkedIn. I'm all over the socials, and and I'm not. It's not an AI answering your messages. That is like, just a lot of times you get some people, you can tell, like when you message them, Thomas, it's like that's not really a person. Like that's an algorithm talking to me right now. I answer,
now
I
you're speaking.
respond. It is not.
You're speaking my world. Like, listen, guys, pick. It's your LinkedIn account. You can have people manage it, but at some point you need to jump in. You can't outsource it. You can't outsource all the stuff forever. Anyway, there's a level of it. Hey, well, here's my final question. So, if there was a question I probably should have asked you and I did not today, what was that question?
The question was, what is one thing I would tell myself right now, and I would give a piece of advice to everybody that they can take away that will level up their life significantly? That would be the question.
And how would you have answered that question since I didn't think to answer it?
Here it is. Get over being scared of failure. if I can give you one superpower, right, that has changed my life, it's changed my building a business as a CEO, it's provided me so much opportunity to learn and grow. Stop being afraid of failure. Seek it. That may be the most wild advice you hear right now. Find failure every day because there's only two options in life. You either going to win or you're going to learn. You only fail if you don't learn. So once you get over the feel of failure, your comfort zone will expand. You'll look at opportunities to grow. You'll continue to be in a constant mindset of learning. You will expand not only your business if you're an entrepreneur, you expand your personal relationships. So my piece of advice, get over the fear of failure, seek it every day. You are either going to win or you're going to learn. Let's go.
That's right. Well, listen, like the one of the biggest things that hold people back, the tie that needs to be cut most is letting go of those fears. And that could be a failure. Like you said, if you fail and you keep failing, but you're not learning from it, you're just repeating it, expecting it to work. There's a difference between trying things and just not learning or getting nuance. You are going to fail because you're like, at some point you got to step around the wall. You can't put your head through it. And the other is if you're afraid of succeeding. And I say that because that's often tied to the fear of losing something once you've gotten it, that you can't repeat it. And so I think those two big main fears are usually kind of surround all of it. And I can't agree with you more that you got to let that go. Chris, thank you so much, by the way. This is awesome. He's going to be like, why aren't you hiring me? We'll talk about that off, and I'm going to bring you back on. But thanks for coming on, Chris, for today's program.
Thomas, thank you for everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Everybody have a great day.
You too. Hang on a sec off stage here. I'll bring you back on here, and I'll say a little goodbye. Thanks, Chris, once again for coming on the Never Been Promoted podcast YouTube channel. Listen, like you got to rethink how you're looking at your finance. It's worth at least contacting him to say, hey, what can I do? Where do I start? If you had any questions, get out there, just try it. Like I said, don't be afraid to just reach out. The worst you'll find is that you don't want to change your mind and you'll be where you are. For everybody who engaged today in the comments, thank you so much. And get a hold of Chris on his channels that they'll be in, the show here we've done. If this was your first time or you've been here before, thank you just for making it to this point. I always ask, if you really like the stuff, give the subscribe to the YouTube that we have it, Never Been Promoted, and 5-star the podcast if you can, if you like it. If you don't like it, get me on LinkedIn and tell me what we can do to better. Thanks for listening. Till we meet next time on the Never Been Promoted podcast. Get out there and go unleash your entrepreneur. Thanks.